In the middle of June, a group of Kenyan policymakers, including representatives from both houses of parliament, visited South Korea. The tour, organized by Kenya's nuclear champion, the Kenya Nuclear Electricity Board, which has set a target of 2022 for the country's first nuclear reactor to hit the national electricity grid.
Between now and 2015, we must set up an independent regulator. And how do we go about that? We go about that by asking or moving our national parliament to pass a nuclear policy and nuclear legislation. An independent regulator, independent from all the players, the promoters, the users. So that needs to be put in place, then through legislation.
And Kenya has hit the ground running. At Korea's top nuclear graduate school, we meet these Kenyan students who have been sent here with support from the South Korean government to get the knowledge and take it back home.
Within a few years, that is from around 1978, Korea has managed to be self-reliant in terms of nuclear power plant technology. So this is something that we can borrow from.
For nuclear power to be established in our country, there must be a strong political commitment.
So we need to build the capacity of our training institutions to train us locally and to train others internationally so that we have trained personnel. We need to have an emergency handling program put in place so that in the unlikely event that anything happens, as a country, we will be able to handle the challenges that arise from such emergency.
Kenya's main argument in the quest for nuclear energy is purely economic and is pegged on Vision 2030. Experts say the economic blueprint requires at least 17,000 megawatts of electricity to deliver. And right now, Kenya has only 1/10 of that. The country produces nearly half of its energy from hydropower, which depends on rainfall and is nearing its capacity. Next is thermal energy, which means burning diesel, an expensive and environmentally unfriendly source. Then there is wind and solar that are clean and renewable, but are not yet reliable enough to run a big economy. The best option appears to be geothermal power. That can give Kenya between 7,000 to 10,000 megawatts, still way short of the projected demand.
In order to power increasing capacity of industry, you need intensive, concentrated energy supply in electricity. This is why I recommended nuclear energy for Kenya.
Kenyan public have to understand and be aware, cognizant of the fact that we may not be able, with what we have in Kenya today, to have our energy requirements without having nuclear with us, cost effectively.
We need that development very soon. But the question becomes, if the cost of getting Vision 2030 at the year 2030 is that we have to go nuclear, which also has its vagaries and problems, then I think that is where we have to make the departure.
We are too afraid until we may never make a step. If we were that afraid of aeroplanes or even motor vehicles, we wouldn't go anywhere.
A nuclear plant generates between 1,000 and 1,400 megawatts of electricity, meaning that just 2 plants would produce more power than what Kenya currently has. And some of the men and women who would pass laws to usher in Kenya's nuclear age appear convinced that this is the way to go.
If really Kenya wants to drive its economy, then we must go nuclear.
I believe if they took too long in Kenya, then it should take a shorter time once we have identified where exactly do we need the nuclear power.
Seeing the way the Koreans use it, there have not been had any incidents since 1978. Seeing the way we have nuclear plants among the people where they live, and it's actually a reliable source of energy and there have been no incidences.
But that journey to a nuclear age may not be a stroll in the park for Kenya. Only last year, the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, warned Kenya against going down that road. In a statement, UNEP's Executive Director Achim Steiner urged Kenya to consider what he called more sustainable ways of meeting its energy demand, insisting that putting up the plants would be too costly to begin with. There is an additional cost of managing nuclear waste, he said, and there are no permanent disposal sites for nuclear waste anywhere in the world.
A country like Korea, about 100,000 square kilometers, it has about 20,000 megawatts of nuclear. It is yet to build a permanent waste depository system. Kenya, which is a much bigger country and which will be generating about 4,000 megawatts of electricity from nuclear, will probably take over 100 years to start thinking of permanent waste disposal system.
You are dealing with virtually all legislation that you can conceive in relation to Kenya moving forward as a country. That is how pervasive the nature of this technology is, and that is how pervasive the kind of legal framework required to deal with it has to be.
In the end, one argument will win and another will lose. But once again, it will be a tough call, sitting in that delicate space between economic development on the one hand and questions of the environment and safety on the other.